Information killing or saving the car dealer. I'm Dennis Berman of the Wall Street Journal. Scott Painter, founder and CEO of TrueCar. Scott, we just had a great discussion inside the WSJ Lounge here at Davos. You really painted some interesting scenarios about how information is changing the car buying process. We're in 2013. You've been doing this for 7 years. What is the state of art right now in sort of information and car buying?
Well, I think there's an interesting experiment going on, certainly in the US, about whether or not transparency is good for auto retail and whether or not it's good for consumers. And I think that there's no doubt that it's good for consumers. I think that the ability to discover what is a fair price is now available and possible. And the question is, how do dealers incorporate that successfully into their business?
Right. So now you went through a near-death experience at TrueCar. You almost were doing such a good job getting some of those prices down that dealers revolted. You've reformatted the company a bit. Tell us what you've done to change that.
Well, I think most importantly, what we found is that when you focus so single-handedly on the consumer, once you become relevant, you actually have to give dealers the tools to use the science of pricing. And so that's really where we're at now. And I think we're at the very beginning of that process, but we have rebuilt the business with those tool sets in mind to help the dealers to understand how to really interpret the market so that they can take advantage of it.
So tell us, for our viewers, I'm a dealer, I'm sitting in the back of the finance department, I got this thing called TrueCar. What are the tools that I'm actually using that give me confidence I'm actually getting a fair price for me as a dealer?
Well, there's really two parts of the transaction for you as a dealer. In auto retail, it's about pricing and it's also about closing the transaction. So the consumer side of it is obviously giving confidence to the consumer, introducing trust through better data that is really objective, that the consumer can believe in at the time of the purchase. But the more important part, which is where we're getting to now with TrueCar, is setting the prices correctly in the first place. Because otherwise you're either setting it too high and having to negotiate your way down to a fair price, or setting it too low and giving away margin. And I think that's the key that's happening now.
Okay, it's cold out here, so let's wind up with a couple things. Give us three dirty secrets, dirty little secrets of the auto industry. You've spent such a long time in it, you know it really forward to back.
Well, I think probably the most important thing is to understand the customer. I think most dealers want to know more about their customer, and so actually the internet is not the dealer's enemy. It really is their friend. They can learn more about customers before they come into the dealership than they ever could have before. I think it is more important to earn their trust. Trust is not something that requires subvention or incentive money. From a brand. You can actually introduce trust right at the dealer level and being transparent, and I think brands can also embrace that. I think from a consumer level, you've got to be informed. If you go into a dealership and you don't know what others paid, you're just going in unarmed and you're likely to get taken advantage of.
Now, of course, most people who buy a car now do use the internet, so...
Well, it's not just using the internet, but certainly the power of information and understanding specifically what others paid for that same car is the only way to understand
fairness. Would you say in the power between buyer and seller right now, in the market for cars, that the power has gone to the buyer? It would seem like the answer is yes.
If you seek out the information, the power is in the buyer's hands for sure.
Is information power though, or can information be distracting and overwhelming? I think some people run into that when they're shopping for a car, or sometimes other things.
Yeah, I think what we're finding here in Davos is there's so much interest on how do we simplify it, make it cogent and usable for everybody, because there is so much information out there.
Okay. Now, you didn't answer my dirty little secret question, so I'm going to ask you to tell our viewers the best time and day to buy a car.
There's no doubt there are better times than others to buy a car. End of the month is always a good time.
We know that though.
There are 3 or 4 epic selling windows that occur over the course of a year. Thanksgiving weekend in the US is always a great time, just because you have a model year clearance, you have an end of month, you have an end of week, you have all sorts of incentives and a holiday on top of it. So Black Friday is your day to buy a car.
Black Friday, we got one out of you. We've got 2 more to go. Perhaps next Davos we'll get to that. Scott Painter, CEO of TrueCar. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All right.